and tell me what it reminds you of, okay? So what do you see first off? There's a face, right? There's a female face, okay? But it's one of those where part of the feature, like what looks like could be a tear, also looks like it could be some kind of fireworks or something from the carnival festival or fair, whatever, below, right? And it's a flapper because she's got that kind of headpiece that the flappers were often wearing. What's up with the eyes? What do y'all see in the eyes?
I was looking at that, but
I know, right? Looks like naked women to me. Does it look like naked women to y'all?
Kinda, yeah.
I don't know why. I do know that this cover was done for, I want to say, the new release of Gatsby that actually got the attention. That it was re-released in 1945, and that's when people started to really take note of it. So I know it was done specifically for Gatsby, but I still haven't figured out what's up with the eyes, honestly, except there are a lot of, images of eyes in the book with the T.J. Eckelberg big glasses and then owl eyes, and here we've got this flapper who seems to have, I don't know, naked women or eyes. That's so weird. But I do have an idea of what's going on with the carnival scene below, okay? First off, and I don't know how far you guys have read, but in the reading that you're doing it's Thursday, I put it off. The quiz is going to be Thursday, okay? In the reading that you're going to do for Thursday, you'll notice that Nick is going to find out a little bit about Gatsby and Daisy's past, okay? And, Gatsby is going to ask a favor of Nick. And in the moment where he's asking this favor and where he's talking to him, it's nighttime, and Gatsby has his entire mansion, lit. You got lights on in every single room, so it's blazing in the background. And Nick is ready to go to bed, but Gatsby's like, why don't we go to Coney Island, right? Let's go into town. So to me, I think this is supposed to be Coney Island, all right, which is that amusement park off New York. What you got?
Okay, I looked up the meaning of the thing.
Did you? Okay, because I have what's the right word for it? I have God, I'm having trouble communicating today. I have not looked up the meaning, but tell me, since you took the trouble to do it, what does it say?
It says the irises of the eyes of nude women lounging in them represent Gatsby's views about and future with Daisy. They also represent the wealthy, since this book strips away their outer shell and shows their true nature.
Ooh, I like that.
It says the eyes and the lips also represent Daisy. The green tear represents the green one.
Oh, okay. Is that green? I don't know. All right, so I like the whole stripping away because these people aren't happy, right? They have every material thing that you could possibly want, but they're still not happy, right? The carnivals, thank you. I've resisted. That was the word I was looking for. I've resisted looking it up because I keep thinking I'm going to be smart enough to figure it out, but sometimes we need help, huh? All right, so the carnival scene below. Have y'all been to the state fair? Y'all been to the state fair, right? State fair, it's exciting, it's colorful, you got the neon lights. I mean, it's awesome. But the longer you stick around and the more closely you look around you when you're at the fair, what do you start to notice? Nobody? Yeah, it's kind of yucky, right? It's kind of got this grimy underbelly, right? It's kind of dirty. Well, here are Gatsby's big parties that he throws, right? And I think you've probably figured out by now that he throws these big parties and just allows anybody and everybody in because what? What's he hoping for?
Daisy.
Yeah, he's hoping she's going to wander in someday, right? And the longer these parties last into, the wee hours of the morning, and often, they don't wrap up until dawn. I mean, you got some drunk people, right? And if you got like hundreds of drunks, things get pretty ugly. So Gatsby's parties on the surface look magnificent and luscious and, luxurious, but they kind of like deteriorate into some pretty, ugly scenes. Okay? Kind of like maybe that carnival. So anyway, that's my take on that. I want to look at when Gatsby and Daisy finally get to see each other after 5 years. It's been 5 years, you guys, okay? So this is going to be chapter 5. And let's see, okay. In your book, if you've got the same one that I have, it's going to be page 97. All right. And you're looking for a paragraph that starts with, he had passed visibly through 2 states and was entering upon a third. I'm trying to give you how many pages it might be into the chapter too. I think it's one of those that's like right smack in the middle of the chapter though. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe it's closer to the end. Yeah, it's kind of in the middle.
It's 91.
Thank you. 91 in the new book. Y'all grab a highlighter too, okay? So hopefully you've read this far because I, asked you to, and y'all want to do everything I ask of you, right? But we have Gatsby showing off his house to Daisy, okay? And it was super awkward at first when he sees her, and he wants to bail because he's like embarrassed and he feels like he's done the wrong thing, but Nick talks him into sticking around a little bit. And finally, he and Daisy start settling in, and they start to have good conversation. And then at some point, they decide that they're going to go from Nick's little house to Gatsby's big mansion. And Nick is observing the two of them together, okay? All right. So this is talking about Gatsby. He had passed visibly through 2 states and was entering upon a third. After his embarrassment and his unreasoning joy, he was consumed with wonder at her presence. He'd been full of the idea for so long, dreamed it right through to the end, waited with his teeth set, so to speak, at an inconceivable pitch of intensity. Now, in the reaction, he was running down like an overwound clock. Okay. So all of this is kind of leading us to that idea that we've already talked about quite a bit, and that's disillusionment. He's got this idea of Daisy built up in his mind, okay? Recovering himself in a minute, he opened for us 2 hulking patent cabinets which had held his masked suits and dressing gowns and ties and his shirts piled like bricks and stacks a dozen high. He said, I've got a man in England who buys my clothes. He sends over a selection of things at the beginning of each season, spring and fall. And he took the pile of shirts and begins throwing them out one before us, one by one, shirts of linen and thick silk and fine flannel. And they lost their folds as they fell and covered the table in many-colored disarray. While we admired, he brought more, and the soft, rich heap mounted higher, shirts with stripes and scrolls and plaids in coral and apple green and lavender and faint orange with monograms of Indian blue. Why is Gatsby throwing his shirts out of his closet? I mean, what emotion? Is it joy? Is it that disbelief that he's here with her finally and he just has this excess energy, so he's like exuberant? I mean, we honestly don't know. It's kind of odd though, okay? So is her reaction. Suddenly, with a strange sound, Daisy bent her head into the shirts and began to cry stormily. Now you want to highlight this, okay? They're such beautiful shirts, she sobbed, her voice muffled in the thick folds. It makes me sad because I've never seen such beautiful shirts before. So I hope y'all have read far enough, because if you haven't, you don't really probably understand what's going on here. But why do you think Daisy would start crying into these gorgeous shirts? I mean, that's an odd reaction. What do you think she's realizing? I mean, if Gatsby has all of these beautiful shirts like that are so exquisite that she's never seen the likes before. What does that say about his, I guess, so-called success?
He's really successful.
I mean, he's made it, right? Have y'all read enough to know why she didn't marry Gatsby? Oh. Daniel, I know you've read.
Because he didn't have any other money.
He didn't have any money. It's very much like Zelda and Fitzgerald, right? She wanted to marry him, but he was poor. Okay? She even almost broke off the engagement with Tom when she found out Gatsby still wanted to be with her. And this was after he'd been in the war. You gotta read it, folks. You gotta read it, okay? But they basically kind of like forced her family kind of forced her back into the marriage with Tom because Tom could provide, okay? Tom was security. So why is she crying into these shirts now? What is she realizing?
She was wrong.
Yeah, she could have had the security and the love. It's regret, right? Okay, there's a little bit more in this scene that we need to read too. After the house, we went to the grounds and the swimming pool and the hydroplane and the midsummer flowers, but outside Gatsby's window it began to rain again. So we stood in a row looking at the corrugated surface of the Sound. Highlight all this, y'all. If it wasn't for the mist, we could see your home across the bay, said Gatsby. You always have a green light that burns all night at the end of your dock. Daisy put her arm through his abruptly, but he seemed absorbed in what he had said. Possibly it had occurred to him that the colossal significance, colossal's big, y'all, colossal significance of that light had now vanished forever. Compared to the great distance that had separated him from Daisy, it seemed very near to her, almost touching her. It had seemed as close as a star to the moon. Now it again was just a green light on a dock. His count of enchanted objects had diminished by one. And a little bit further on, it says, if you skip ahead about 2 pages, there are lyrics to a song. And then underneath it says, as I went over to say goodbye. Do y'all see that? Y'all see that? Okay. As I went over to say goodbye, I saw that the expression of bewilderment had come back into Gatsby's face, as though a faint doubt had occurred to him as to the quality of his present happiness. Highlight all this, y'all. Almost 5 years. There must have been moments, even that afternoon, when Daisy tumbled short of his dreams. Not through her own fault, but because of the colossal vitality of his illusion. And just a few lines down it says, no amount of fire or freshness can challenge what a man will store up in his ghostly heart. So when they're looking out that window, y'all, she physically, like he's looking out at the mist, right? Imagining that green light that he's been gazing at for so long, dreaming about her and the life they would have together, right? She physically comes and puts her arm, hooks her arm into his, and yet he's still focused on, that light, right? And thinking about it as some kind of enchanted object. And here we have the explanation. There's no way that any flesh and blood woman, no matter how magnificent, right, could actually live up to what? His expectation, his dream. And y'all, that's disillusionment. So he's starting to figure out that maybe, she's not gonna provide the happiness that he thought that she would for so long. Okay? All right. What I need you guys to do is take the next 8 minutes or so that we have left, and I need y'all to mark up the bio and highlight the Hemingway Code Hero. And I think because we're not going to do our quiz tomorrow, I may just let you do the Hemingway work from Canvas. I'll change it from being due tonight to being due tomorrow so that you can work on Gatsby at home and work on Hemingway in class. Does that make sense? Okay, but y'all mark that up and try to absorb it because it's very important. All right, a lot of information about Hemingway and his Code Hero. Kind of a big deal, okay? Kind of a big deal.